Thank you very much. I'm in bed by 9:30 as well, by the way. Just want to point that out. It's very interesting being asked to do these events because I'm a big advocate of equality for women, not for a PC perspective, but I was taught it very early on from actually a very unusual source. My father was a career soldier, and he fought in a number of wars. In fact, he fought in the Dhofar War in Oman. And I was super proud of him. He was a great guy. And I once asked him to come to my boarding school to prepare a presentation about his life in the army. I told him to leave out the nasty bits, but talk about what he was like. And it was a mixed audience. We're all about 13 years old. And he was really good. He was a great guy. And one of my friends, Sarah, piped up at the end when he asked if there were any questions. And she said, "Why are there no combat officers in the army?" This was in 1983, when our glorious Maggie Thatcher was in power. And it was a really interesting question to ask because he was a 40-year-old man and he'd been a soldier for a long time. And he said to her, "Women will never be combat officers in my day. And the only reason they aren't is because of the myopicness of men in power. Give it 10 years' time, there will be a lot." That was from a guy in 1983. So he taught me an awful lot. So I was asked to come and talk about all the things that I'd tell myself when I was younger. I'm not going to go into all of them because some of them are a bit embarrassing, but I'm going to try and go through some of them. One of them is to party less when I was at university and study more. I think everyone has that same thing. The second thing is don't be put off by failure. As I said, my dad was a soldier and my son's a soldier and my grandfather was a soldier and I was going to be a soldier. Guess who failed? Me. Twice, actually. Not once, twice. And I gave up, and I didn't go on to become a full-time soldier, which I regret to this day. My friends all did it, and they did really well, and they had great careers afterwards. But don't be put off by failure, and I've learned that as I've got older, and I'm really old now, by the way. The other thing is don't always go for big companies. When I was a student, I was always taught to go for a big company, good career, and its longevity and safety. And I think these days, certainly the people I see is when I interview them, it's more about the environment, the culture, what you're going to get from it, your personal beliefs. And I think the younger generation, I say that feeling really old, is that they go for different values. And I think when I was younger, it was always, I listened to my parents, go for a steady career. And I think that maybe was a bit of a mistake. The other one is don't be tempted by money. That's a classic, isn't it? Because let's face it, it's expensive to live, full stop. But I was offered, I used to work for a company called Monster.com, and it was a big global job brand. I think it's almost died a death, unfortunately, now. But I was offered an SVP in the States, and my girlfriend then, who's now my wife, my only wife, actually, and she said to me, "Is this the right career move for you?" And I said, "They're doubling my salary, and we're going to live in the States, and we're going to be brilliant." And she said, "Is it the right job for you?" And I went, "No." So I turned it down. So I took 2 steps back, and I then became the MD 2 years later. So I actually thought about what the actual job entailed rather than just being chasing the money, which was a really good thing for me. The other bit is listen to what people are saying. Now, I'm a recruiter, so my day is spent always listening to people. Now, I do talk an awful lot, and I'm going to be told off for talking too long probably later, but I remember my boss at Michael Page said to me, "Only listen to the first 30 seconds of what somebody's saying and form an opinion." What a terrible idea. Awful idea. So my first couple of years, I just didn't listen to people. And I was young, I was fairly arrogant, and I thought I was brilliant. And I was 24 years old. And it was a mistake, and it took me a long time to unlearn that and to actually listen to what people are saying. I do it now with my kids. I've got 2 older kids. One's a soldier, actually. And I remember him telling me about he couldn't get into a certain regiment, wanted to get into another. And I sort of drifted off a bit. And he said to me, "You're not listening to me. You've got to listen to me, Dad, because I really need your opinion." So when you're with junior members of staff and people like that, listen to what they're saying. And don't try and form an opinion too quickly. Be brave. I think there are times in your career, and especially, and forgive me for saying this, and I'll talk about this later on, because I think women, when there's a job, and this is a proven fact, LinkedIn did a survey not long ago, if a job comes up and a man can do 60% of it, he will apply. If a woman can do 80%, she often won't apply. Be super brave, because what can go wrong? You'll get rejected. If you don't try, you can never do it. And I'll give you a sort of very real example of this, and it's not a work thing. When I was 48, I started doing triathlons, and a friend of mine, Yola, knows this, and I'm now a little bit older than that, and I'm on my 18th Ironman. I've just come back from the UK from doing it, where I almost died, actually. It was a horrible experience, but don't let that put you off. But I remember when I first got to the start line, I was 48, and there were all these youngsters beside me in their onesies, and I was like, I'm never going to be any good at this. And I just got into it and enjoyed it. And I think when I talk to my younger son, he's going for internships at the moment, and he's saying, I'm not going to apply for that, I don't think I'm good enough. And I'm like, why? And he said, because all these things that are written down, I haven't got. And I said, but you can do that and you can do that, can't you? And he went, yeah, and I said, just go for it. You can never, ever be put off by just going for something. All that will happen is somebody will say no. And you just try again at something else. The other bit is mistakes. You're going to go through your whole career making mistakes. I mean, I've made so many, and I still keep making them as well. Honestly, apart from the army one, I have no regrets. Because all those mistakes you make you the person you are today. And in reality, if you don't make those mistakes, you'll never be you'll never have a learning process. I'll give you a really good example. This is a particularly horrible one for me. 2 years ago, I found an MD for my business to run Mackenzie Jones, because I wanted to focus on women at work. And we were a very successful business, 60 people. We were we were at the pinnacle of our success, and I replaced myself. It was an utter disaster. 2 years later, Mackenzie Jones almost folded. For me, it was a very painful process. The person that took over my job was a great guy, but probably not the right person for that role. Would I do that again? Absolutely. I sort of have to, because unfortunately my name is above the door, which is never a good thing, by the way. Never name your company after your own name. It sort of limits you a bit. But you have to make those mistakes, and I think if you don't, you will never get good at what you do. So just to go into the final part of this is, I've always grown up that women are equal to men. The sole reason being that why is there any difference in reality? Let me fast forward a few years. In 2016, I set up Mums at Work. The reason I set this up was because a friend of mine, Sarah, is a corporate lawyer, and she's a single mum, and she was at lunch with me. And she said to me, David, why can't Mackenzie Jones find me a job? And I said, because you haven't had a job for 4 years. And she turned around to me and said, my DNA has not changed. I went away from that thinking, really interesting. I'm missing something here. And so we set up Women at Work, Mums at Work, to engage with women that had had time out, and we tried to get them into organisations. Deloitte was one of our best clients because they're really open about this. We placed over 450 women. We trained 5,000 women. We engaged with Google, with the RTA. We lobbied government. The government in Saudi Arabia were absolutely brilliant about this. And it was a really big success. Not down to me, down to a lady called Louise Karim. And she really transformed the way women are seen in the workplace. It then became Women at Work, because we wanted to engage with people who didn't just have kids. And it was a huge success. It's been difficult, I must admit. I stand on stage talking about why women should be equal and why women should be given a chance. But why should I be here saying that? Companies shouldn't have to position themselves as having to give women a chance. It just should be a situation where, in a recruitment company, when I get a job brief, the amount of times I get told by clients, we want a man for this job. It's fundamentally wrong. Not because it's a PC thing, it's more that why can't women be equal to men? So I spend most of my time talking to clients about how we get women into board positions. And so far, believe me, there is a sea change here. One thing that's been really good has been COVID. I know that's a really weird thing to say, but the advocate of flexible working means that women who've got kids can suddenly become more flexible. They're more accepted. I think if you look at the way work is changing, people are much more adapt to change. It's your time now. Saudi Arabia is changing massively. I find the Saudis so engaged with getting females into senior roles. Most of my briefs now in Saudi are for females. And the female talent pool there is amazing. They're all very young and very engaged. So I think, to conclude, and I think I haven't hit my 10 minutes yet, which is a legend for me, be brave, believe in yourself, and you'll do extremely well. Thank you.